Carbohydrates are actually our body's preferred fuel source. So mentally and physically, our body is happy when we consume carbs. Do you struggle to maintain weight loss but desperately want to feel good in your own skin, confident in your clothes, and improve your overall health? If so, you're home. Hey, I'm Sam, dietitian, specialist in weight management, and former functioning fat girl. I learned the secret of how to lose and maintain weight by simply nourishing my life well. If you're ready for the sustainable nutrition strategies, consistent habits, and freedom from a self-sabotaging mindset, grab your water bottle and let's go. Before we get started on today's amazing episode, I just want to remind you that if you're not subscribed to my email list yet, you're missing out. I'll be breaking down the most important points of these podcast episodes, providing you with a healthy recipe of the week or a favorite meal prep tip, and give you first dibs on any new offers or programs I'm running. This is the best way to stay in contact with me, and I'd also really love it if you sent in ideas for topics to get into on the podcast. So don't miss out and go ahead and click the link in the show notes to subscribe to Anchored Living, my email newsletter. Okay, let's dive into the episode. Okay, pretend we're sitting in my office in a session. If I asked you to list what carbohydrates are, what would you say? I'll give you a second to think. I'll tell you what most people tell me when I ask them that. Bread, pasta, rice, cookies, cake, potatoes, bagels, and so on. In fact, a great number of clients I speak with will tell me they don't eat any carbs at all. And then when we go through our intake audit, it's clear that they're eating a great deal of carbs and they just don't realize it. I've even heard a few comments about the new upside down food pyramid having all the carbs at the bottom as some sort of justification that carbs are the enemy. So what category would you put these foods in? Blueberries, bell peppers, kale, oats, quinoa, strawberries, asparagus, sweet potatoes. Spoiler, also carbs. Wait, fruits and veggies are carbohydrates? Yes, friends, really. We have three main macronutrients: protein, carbohydrates, and fat. Fruits and veggies are part of the carbohydrate category, along with those grains that we see at the bottom of the upside down pyramid. So that's what we're going to talk about today, my friends. My favorite category of foods to eat: carbohydrates. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you find value in this episode, but even more so, I sincerely hope you let go of any fear around eating carbohydrates. Okay, also, I'm not going to specifically be picking apart the new dietary guidelines or the odd upside down pyramid. I think there are some great points to it all and some pretty silly points. And if you haven't heard, or if you have heard my last episode, we dove into the protein conversation and all the controversy surrounding it. I'm not here to criticize all the issues or to inflate the benefits of anything. I'm just here to equip and empower you with the information you need to make the best possible choices for long-term weight loss and improved health. So bring on the carbs, baby. Okay, here's the thing. Can you lose weight fast on a low-carb diet? Sure. You can also lose weight fast on a low-protein diet, or a low-fat diet, or the keto diet, or the paleo diet, or the South Beach diet, or the carnivore diet, or, well, you get the point. Because when it specifically comes to the number on the scale, the laws of thermodynamics are king, meaning we lose weight when we consume less calories than we burn, aka when we're in a calorie deficit. Are there other factors involved in our ability to lose weight? Sure, but none surpass the deficit. So whether we eat no carbohydrates or all carbohydrates, as long as we're in a consistent calorie deficit, we're in the position for weight loss. Now, we know the importance of protein. I made a pretty strong case for a high protein diet in the last episode. So if you didn't hear it, I would encourage you to go back and give it a listen. But a high protein diet, or the recommendation to prioritize protein, does not mean only protein and no carbs. Carbohydrates are actually our body's preferred fuel source. So mentally and physically, our body is happy when we consume carbs. Duh. I would argue it's the quality or the choice of carbs that makes the biggest difference. So when we think of that list we said initially, bread, pasta, rice, bagels, cookies, yada yada, those types of carbohydrates, often referred to as simple carbs, are typically more calorie dense versus nutrient dense, given they're all using like the regular white flour, regular sugar ingredients. It doesn't mean we can never have any of those foods if we want to lose weight, but the more of them we have, the more consistently we have them, the more likely we are to fall out of a calorie deficit, because those types of foods have very little fiber and don't sit in our guts for very long. Meaning we may feel full in the moment, but they don't keep us feeling satisfied for very long. So we tend to eat more of them continuously. In our bariatric world, we call those slider foods because they just kind of slide right on through. Not to mention, they elevate our blood sugars, which can send us on that crazy blood sugar roller coaster. Rise, fall, crave, binge. When we choose fruit, veggies, and whole grains as our carbohydrate sources, we're getting a multitude of different nutrition benefits, i.e., when we choose fruit, veggies, and whole grains as our carbohydrate sources, we're getting a multitude of different nutrition benefits, i.e. fiber, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, the list goes on. These are referred to as complex carbohydrates. They also tend to be lower in calories, they have much less of an impact on our blood sugars, and they don't send us into that crave binge cycle. By the way, so many of us don't realize how connected our mental health is with our food intake, and in particular, carbohydrate source intake. When we get on that roller coaster, the highs and lows lead to increased levels of moodiness, irritation, impatience, stress, anxiety, and more. Of course, that's not the only thing that causes those symptoms, and by balancing your blood sugars doesn't guarantee you're never going to feel that way. But I'm a lifelong learner of control what is within your control. So, there's so many things that happen in life that are completely out of our control. But what we put into our bodies is not one of them. So if we can put ourselves in the best possible position to not experience that, why not do it? How many people have learned the hard way that when we eat like crap, we feel like crap? Yeah, my hand is raised for sure. And it's so annoying, right? Because we view these foods as reward. Reward for every emotion under the sun. I had a stressful day. I deserve these cookies. I'm sad. This entire bag of chips will surely make me feel better. I'm so mad. I just want to sit here and binge watch Netflix while I binge eat this Chick-fil-A, right? But how many of us actually feel rewarded after we've had our binge? Definitely not me, that's for sure. The shame and guilt start creeping in almost immediately and only get worse throughout the night, peaking in the morning when I wake up feeling like a complete dumpster fire and I'm so mad, sad, disappointed, annoyed, all the feels at myself for not having the quote unquote discipline or willpower to deny my cravings. Some kind of reward, right? How about no? So if when we eat like crap, we feel like crap, does that mean when we eat well, we feel well? I don't know about you guys, but for me, that is 110% correct. It's so much more than the scale because, like I said, you could eat only carbs and still lose weight if you're in a calorie deficit. It's just very difficult to stay in a calorie deficit if we're eating only the ultra-processed simple carbs. Also, for the purposes of this particular episode, I'm referring specifically to carbohydrates as it relates to weight loss. I'm not getting into all the many other reasons why fiber, protein, and fats are important for our bodies. All right, so now we know the difference between simple carbs and complex carbs, as well as their impact on our blood sugars, binge crave cycles, and our mood and mental health. So the question changes from, can I lose weight fast on a low carb diet to, should I eat a low carb diet to lose weight fast? See the difference? I'm going to give you an example of the breakdown of my intake, and I will let you decide if you think it's considered quote unquote low carb. Remember our 3 main macros? Okay. So we all know about calories, right? If you're an elder millennial like me, you probably grew up terrified of them. But calories are simply energy, and we all have a certain amount of energy we need daily. In addition, those needs are going to change based on our goals, i.e., lose weight, gain weight, maintain weight. When I'm working with clients, I provide a range of calories because, let's be real, it's virtually impossible to hit one exact number of calories every single day, especially if we eat different things. That range of calories is made up of those 3 main macronutrients: protein, carbs, and fat. Last week, I made the case for a high-protein diet for lasting weight loss, but the actual recommendations for percent of protein is anywhere from 10 to 30, 35% of our daily intake. So a quote-unquote high-protein diet would fall at the upper end of that range, and I typically end up more like 40%-ish, which is considered quite high for protein. But 35 to 40% is still not a majority of our calories, which I think is what most people would assume a high protein diet would be made up of. All right, so what does that mean for carbs? Well, it depends. If we have 40% of our calories from protein, I don't typically do math without a calculator, but I'm pretty sure I can confidently say that means we have 60% of our calories left, right? Yay, me. 60% in 2 other macronutrients, carb and fat. A quote-unquote low carbohydrate diet is relative to how many calories we consume in a day. It's not an absolute number. But typically, a diet is considered low carb if it's less than or equal to 26% of our calories that come from carbohydrates. A moderate carbohydrate diet is considered approximately 26 to 44% of daily calories coming from carbs. Here in the US, we love our carbies, and the average typical US intake is between 45 and 55%. Again, that's an average intake. Some of us are a little above average. A very low-carb diet, more widely known as a keto diet, is less than 10% of calories from carb, or less than approximately 50 grams per day in order to go into ketosis. Another fun fact, by the way, most people who think they're eating keto are not actually in ketosis, but that's the topic for another day. So carbs. Just to give you an example of what 26% would look like in terms of grams per day. If you're consuming approximately 1,800 calories, 26% would be about 468 calories, which is roughly 117 grams of carbohydrate. If you're eating 2,000 calories a day, 26% is roughly 520 calories and about 130 grams of carbohydrates per day. If you're consuming 2,200 total calories, 26% is approximately 572 calories from carb, which translates to about 143 grams of carbohydrate per day. Now, I'm going to tell you what I aim for. However, this is your PSA. Please, please, please do not just copy my intake. I hesitate to even put this out there, but I think it's helpful as a real life example. This is specific to me, and you want to get your targets from a credentialed professional. Shameless plug, that could be me. There's a link below to schedule your Winning at Weight Loss breakthrough session. A link in the show notes. So again, PSA, do not just aim for these numbers that are my intake. This is simply to provide an example. So for me, I aim for about 1,650 to 1,950 total calories per day, which is a reasonable calorie deficit to allow for healthy weight loss. And I'm eating anywhere from 140 to 165 grams of carbohydrate daily. Sometimes less, sometimes more. I am not super strict about the specific carb to fat ratio. As long as I get my protein in and I stay in my deficit, there is no evidence to show a greater benefit either way, strictly in terms of weight loss. But based on my tracking app, I fluctuate between what is defined as low carb and the very low end of moderate carb intake. When I provide energy and macro needs to clients, so many of my elder millennial friends suffering from the same 80s and 90s diet culture PTSD I was freed from when I learned nutrition science literally freak out over the amount of carbs. 150 grams? What? Isn't that too much? Won't that make me fat? No. We aren't talking about 150 grams of pretzels. We're talking about 150 grams of fruits, veggies, and whole grains. Even though if you ate 150 grams of pretzels and we're still in a calorie deficit, you could technically still lose weight, but I digress. So by prioritizing protein, we're actually allowing for more freedom to enjoy carbohydrate source foods and not overeat them. High fiber, complex carbs do not send us on that roller coaster ride, and they fill us up for less calories than their simple carb counterparts. Meaning, we can eat a good amount of food, feel satisfied, stay satiated longer, and still maintain our calorie deficit for weight loss. We don't have to vow to never let another crumb of carb pass our lips in order to technically be in somewhat of a low carb diet. Does that make sense? I believe people's misunderstanding, or maybe not even misunderstanding, but lack of this knowledge can actually do more harm and lead to inconsistent yo-yo dieting. Because people think low carb means no carb, and high protein means only protein. But really, you can have your proverbial cake and eat it too. You can have a physically and emotionally fulfilling carbohydrate experience throughout your weight loss and weight maintenance journey. I hope that makes you as happy as it makes me. Prioritize your protein, and then you'll be able to eat a satisfying amount of good quality, high fiber, complex carbs. I'll give you an idea of a nice balanced meal. So I could have a, 4 or 5 ounce piece of chicken with roasted broccoli and baked sweet potato. Throw in half an avocado for my healthy fats, and we've got a delicious, super satisfying and filling meal, guaranteed to keep me feeling good for hours until the next mealtime. Are you guys hungry yet? I am. All right, friends, I hope this information was enlightening and gave you permission to enjoy your carbs and still lose weight, even on what is technically considered a low-carb diet. So until next time, my friends, God loves you. I love you. Have a great day. Hey, friend, I really hope you feel empowered by this episode. If so, would you take 30 seconds and share it with another friend who needs it? Also, please leave a quick review for the show on Apple Podcasts. It brings me so much joy to know this podcast is helping you. Okay, time to go nourish well, aka eat some good food. I'll meet you back here next time for another episode. I love you and God loves you. Have a beautiful day.